From the home of untold stories, TV47, coming to you live from the nation's capital in Nairobi. My name is Victor Muyakane, and this is the Daily Report. Tonight we have a lot in store for you, including a conversation on the day that was. A day of many contrasts, a day of many realities, many nuances that we will be unpacking, unraveling, and interrogating. All that and so much more later on tonight's broadcast. But first, alongside my sign language interpreter Catherine Simaloy, we wish to take you to the highlights, just a glimpse of what we have in store for you tonight. Police employ a new tactic to disrupt the planned Nane protests by barricading several roads throughout the city. Businessman Jimmy Wanjigi's residence in the Muthaiga neighborhood became the center of intense drama as police officers surrounded his home in what he described as a targeted raid. And as the new cabinet secretaries assume their roles, President William Ruto today made a bold pledge urging the nation to give his cabinet a chance.
A governance that delivers security and prosperity inclusively and sustainably.
The president announced that in addition to shifting the country's budgeting model to zero-based budgeting, his new cabinet will ensure that corruption cases are resolved within 6 months. Right, we begin our news with coverage of today's protests. Businessman Jimmy Wanjigi has been asked to present himself to the nearest police station. This is after police officers raided his home this afternoon and were able to find tear gas, canisters and communication devices which were retrieved from that home. However, Wanjigi's lawyer and family have termed today's raid as a political witch hunt, to be precise. Sheila Chelangat tells us more.
This heavily armed policeman at 4 p.m. today camped outside businessman Jimmy Wanjigi's Muthaiga home in what Wanjigi termed as an attempt to raid his home via his X handle. At the heart of the drama unfolding in this quiet neighborhood was this car, a Toyota Land Cruiser, alleged to be owned by the businessman. It had been trailed down by this contingent of police, and upon a search, police say tear gas canisters and assorted communication gadgets were found.
In the vehicle, we have recovered 4 tear gas canister, 2 Motorola gadgets, 7 assorted chargers for the pocket phones, and 1 mobile phone. Investigators are on the ground and to ascertain more details.
And with the whereabouts of Jimmy Wanjigi remaining unknown, this car was stowed away to a police station.
That has happened there, but still there's one motor vehicle that managed to enter the compound and they closed behind it. Our appeal is that he surrenders to the nearest police station whatsoever.
However, Wanjigi's lawyer and family have termed today's raid as political witch hunt.
Just political harassment that, every Kenya and now him is now facing, and he has always faced this before. So we are prepared for any eventuality. I believe these are all politics.
This is not the first time Wanjigi's residence has been raided. In January 2022 and October 2017, police officers raided Wanjigi's office in Westlands and his home.
We want to wait and see what the police are going to say after this, and then we'll be able to address the press maybe tomorrow at the correct time.
Sheila Chelangat for TV47.
Thank you, Sheila, for that. In other news, President William Ruto has affirmed his commitment as his new cabinet starts its work. The head of state today conceding that many public officials have fallen short of some constitutional requirements, including integrity. Paul Kirobi was at State House and tells us more.
Thursday morning marked the beginning of a new chapter for President Ruto's cabinet as they officially assumed their roles. Ruto's government is once again striving to stay resilient following the youth-led protest. This marking a fresh start after Parliament approved the 19 cabinet secretaries. Yesterday, the first to be sworn in was Interior CS Kithure Kindiki, who managed to retain his position despite Ruto's reshuffling his cabinet during the second round of appointments. The president acknowledged that the previous cabinet secretaries fell short of meeting constitutional standards, particularly on matters of integrity. While the government remains committed to fulfilling its promises, the president has introduced new measures to be followed by his cabinet secretaries. A key priority is to ensure the success of the Kenya Kwanza administration leading up to 2027. A key priority is to ensure the success of the Kenya Kwanza administration leading up to 2027. Among the critical challenges the CS must address are issues of accountability and corruption. For instance, to strengthen accountability and ensure responsible use of public resources, President Ruto announced plans to introduce measures that will impose a surcharge on any accounting officer or public official responsible for the loss of public funds. The government will also implement a unified personal identification UPI system for all employees across all branches of government, including constitutional commissions, to eliminate ghost workers and prevent payroll fraud. The cabinet has also been tasked to work with Parliament and introduce legal and institutional framework and continued vetting of public officials. The same framework shall be used to provide the repository of wealth declaration across the entire government under one office. This has been one of the major challenges affecting public service in the country.
As I indicated in my earlier address, I have engaged with the parliamentary leadership with a view to expediting the enactment of the Conflict of Interest Bill and expressed my determination to sign a robust, effective instrument into law in due course. I further reiterate my determination to make full use of the opportunities within our legal and institutional structures and systems.
The president says he arrived at the conclusion of working with opposition leaders, as this is the only way to make sure the government moves forward towards its objectives and goals. In less than 2.5 years to go, the new cabinet secretaries will have a huge task to play, more importantly to conform to the bottom-up economic model, which was President William Ruto's agenda when he took oath of office in the year 2022. Paul Kerobi, TV47, State House, Nairobi.
Thank you, Paul Kirobi. The planned Nane protests were finally held today as police used new tactics on protesters. The protests, which started in June, have seen President Ruto's administration withdraw the Finance Bill 2024, as well as dissolve his first cabinet, in a major win for the protesters. Even as the government lost billions in revenue and as businesses remain shut, police today employed a new strategy as they prevented protesters from the Nairobi Central Business District, even as other demonstration hotspots such as Kisumu and Mombasa remained calm.
It started as a normal day for demos as businesses remain shut over fears of being looted by goons, with the business community counting losses.
Kama venye unaona hakuna biashara inaendelea, hakuna watu wanaenda town, hakuna watu wanatoka town, sasa biashara zimefunga. Kenya tunauliza hii itafanyika hadi lini?
Ningependa nishauri serikali ya kwamba tafadhali wakae chini, jinsi wamebadilisha au viongozi wakae chini watengeneze uongozi ambaye itajumisha kila wananchi, na hii mambo ya maandamano jinsi waone kana kwamba yale matakwa yao president na baraza lake imejukumika.
Even as police barricaded roads to prevent protesters from accessing the CBD, some managed to evade the barricades as police got busy with smoking out people believed to be protesters from public service vehicles headed for Nairobi City. As it approached 11 a.m., protesters led by Haki Africa Managing Director Hussein Khalid and activist Kasmuel Makori approached the CBD, armed with placards with messages against President William Ruto's administration. Then, tear gas and running battles became the order of the day. Police officers extended their excessive force towards members of the Fourth Estate. This police officer was on spot showcasing his taekwondo movements against the man behind the lenses. In the process, 6 people, including 3 journalists, were injured and rushed to various hospitals. Meanwhile, in the CBD, over 20 protesters were arrested and taken to Central Police Station. Mike Kagwango, TV47, Nairobi.
A total of 174 protesters were today arrested during the Nane demonstrations witnessed in various parts of the country. Among those arrested, 126 were in Nairobi, 24 in Kitengela, and 26 in Emali town. This is according to a report from the Acting Inspector General of Police, Gilbert Masengeli, who spoke to the press on Thursday evening, where he reported that despite the arrests, calm was maintained in most areas across the country, unlike in previous demonstrations. Now, Masengeli also announced that the investigations into rogue police officers would continue to ensure that justice is served.
Today, minimal skirmishes were witnessed in downtown Nairobi, Kisii, and Migori towns, where attempts by goons to loot property was effectively thwarted by police officers. Unlike recent demonstrations that were marred with wanton destruction of property, looting, injuries, and loss of lives, today the country remained peaceful and normalcy prevailed. Except in Nairobi, where 1 officer was injured, we also arrested a total of 174 suspects, that is 126 in Nairobi, 22 in Kitengela, Rift Valley, 26 at Emali in Makueni County. Consequently, the National Police Service would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank all law-abiding Kenyans for preserving peace and maintaining law and order across the country today. Kenya is a democratic country, and as a service, we wish to reiterate our commitment to promoting democratic policing that upholds the rule of law, professionalism, transparency, and accountability. We acknowledge the supremacy of Constitution of Kenya, 2010. In particular, Article 37, that guarantees right for every person, peaceably and unarmed, to assemble, to demonstrate, to picket, and to present petitions to public authorities. Despite failure by conveners of today's demonstration to notify the police of their intention to hold the demonstration, we ensured adequate deployment of security personnel and cautioned members of the public to avoid crowded areas that were likely to turn riotous.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, what you've seen is just a glimpse of what we had in store for you. There's more coming. But here's the thing, wherever it is that you're watching us from, you can be able to reach out to us and talk to us about where you were and what you saw on this day. How did Nane look like from where you were today? Our SMS line is on your screen. My producers will also put the WhatsApp number on your screen. Let us know. Talk to us. If you want to wish to communicate to us through X, you can use our X handle, which is at TV47 News. You can also talk to us through the SMS line that I mentioned. You can also hang on, because a little bit later, we have 2 guests who are going to help us to unpack, unravel, and interrogate the day that was. But in the meantime, let's proceed with the rest of the news, where police officers did not take any chances in their efforts to thwart the so-called Nane protests, as several officers were deployed and stationed in different parts of the country, including Mombasa County. They searched every PSV vehicle to ensure that groups of youth do not move into the central business district for the protests. Anastasia Mukabi reports.
During the long-awaited Nane demos by some, security was heightened in Mombasa County as police officers patrolled around. They checked all passenger service vehicles to ensure that a group of youth don't head to Nairobi for the protests against the government.
Of police officers, ukiingia Kibarani wameweka barrier pale, watu wanapekseniwa, wanaangalia matatu, watu washukishwa. Kwa hivyo polisi wako wengi katika mji. Vile vile
the police are caught in a surprise, so they do not want to be caught in this surprise. That's why they are still in the streets trying to quell the situation.
Some of the few protesters who came out condemned the president's move of sending the youth to work abroad.
Kuna kazi, factories hakuna. Tukashangaa President William Samuel Ruto akasema kwamba ametoa pesa kuinvesti vijana wachukuliwa wakienda nchi za nje kwenda kufanya kazi. Sasa vijana wakienda nchi za nje kwenda kufanya kazi, nchi yetu itafanywa kazi na nani na itaendelezwa na nani? Maana wakienda wote ni nani atajenga nchi?
Sisi kwa serikali ni kuwa angalau kama itawezekana pia waweze kuangalia upande wa KRA. Maana KRA pia imefinya vijana sana. Maduka zingine, wafanya biashara wengine pin zao zimekuwa suspended for no reason. Mimi ningewaaje pia serikali hata kama inataka kuangalia mambo ya vijana pia iangalie pia. Kuna biashara nyingi sana ambazo zimelemewa kwa sababu KRA unajaribu kujieleza bado hatuelewani, unapata vitu, unafungiwa kitu, inafungwa biashara.
In Kitengela, which has been in the news due to the nature of the demos in the area, was deserted amid heightened security. Most traders closed their businesses, many complaining about the lack of customers. Meanwhile, human rights activists condemned police brutality, saying that the presence of the police is supposed to ensure the safety of the protesters and not suppress them.
Jitokeza kwa wingi na kufunga kibarani, maana pale kibarani ukipita wanashukisha watu kwa matatu, wanapection watu. I think it's unnecessary. Mji sasa kuna tense, watu wanaogopa kuingia mjini, mabiashara nyingi zimefungwa kwa sababu ya maandamano. Mimi I believe strongly kwa the rule of law. Kuandamana ni haki yao katika article 37, lakini heavy presence of security inaleta tension unnecessary.
Anastasia Mkabi, TV47.
Tonight, President William Ruto's new cabinet, which was sworn in early Thursday, was met with protests on the same day. A day majority of Kenyans kept off the capital and major cities, with businesses remaining shut. Some youthful protesters are still unhappy with the reappointment of a section of the first cabinet and the president's dalliance with the opposition leader Raila Odinga. But as Apollo Kamau reports, President William Ruto has defended his broad-based government, telling Kenyans he has kept his promise of appointing an inclusive government that will accelerate the transformation of the economy. Let's take a look.
Stop mining, blue economy.
President William Ruto's second cabinet, sworn in early Thursday, coincided with countrywide protests and empty streets, a litmus test for his young, broad-based government, midwifed by his dalliance with Azimio leader Raila Odinga. Ruto defending his dream team, telling the nation he has kept the promise of forming a consultative and broad-based government that will transform the economy.
I have made effort to keep my promise to engage in extensive consultations with leaders from diverse sectors, both public and private, with a view to constituting a broad-based government powered by an inclusive bipartisanship that will accelerate and turbocharge the radical transformation of not just our economy, but also our country.
On the streets, however, the youth who are agitating for reforms on governance showed up, expressing their dissatisfaction with the reinstatement of a section of his previous cabinet, while a section of Kenyans want the new cabinet to be given time to deliver.
Kama hii mambo ya cabinet secretary hawakuwa warudishe hao wenye walikuwa, ilikuwa wareassign wengine.
Sisi ni watajiri wao. Sisi sasa ndio masongo ya hao watu, na tunaomba vizuri wafanyie kazi vizuri.
Hao mawaziri ambao wameteuliwa wahakikisha kwamba hali ya ufisadi wameiangalia kabisa na wamsaidie rais kwa kutoa mwongozo bora ambayo inafaa.
Political analyst Herman Manyora says the appointment of the new cabinet, which is seen as one that is meant to cool political temperatures, will not bear fruit due to the return of old faces and the same political script of co-opting Odinga into government.
The dissolution of cabinet, the formation of a new cabinet was supposed to be a political move, you see, to bring down the temperatures. to send a message of hope to the people of this country, that tomorrow is going to be a better day, that the president has heard the Kenyans, Gen Zs and the others, and is willing to embark on a new path. That is not the case.
With the cabinet now in place, pending the vetting of nominees, Attorney General Dorcas Odur and East Africa Community CS Beatrice Askul, the hard part begins, which is turning around the economy, ending excesses in government, corruption, and insensitive display of opulence.
The message the country was waiting for, and more so the young people, the Gen Zs, has not come through. The president is yet to place the call to Gen Zs. And I think the Gen Zs are waiting for that call. He's yet to place the call. And that's why you can see we are in a state of paralysis in the country. You come on a day like this, nothing is going on. Businesses are losing badly. There's so much fear in the country. We are keeping away investors.
This is the kind of welcome that met the swearing in of the broad-based government. Empty streets, protests and tear gas as the youth continue to voice their opposition against the Ruto-Odinga administration. Apul Kamau, TV47 in Nairobi.
And still in the same line, a few hours after the swearing in of the new cabinet secretaries, some of the new members were seen reporting at their new workplaces, with some taking to their social media platforms expressing their readiness to diligently serve the people of Kenya. Samira Mohammed paints us a picture of how day one was for some cabinet secretaries.
At 9 o'clock sharp, the swearing in of the new cabinet secretary commenced, ready to take the oath and serve their fellow countrymen. Amid ululations and cheers, Ruto's dream team walked majestically to the podium, ready to take the oath that will either lead them to a great history or oblivion.
I, Kithure Kindiki, being appointed a cabinet secretary of Kenya, do swear that I will at all times be faithful to the Republic of Kenya.
And as the new cabinet secretaries finished taking their oath of office, the official vehicles were packed in wait, complete with the national flag, a symbol of authority on assuming the office. With some seen reporting at their workstation, a clear indication of their readiness to start their new duties. The man who will be in charge of the country's treasury, John Badi, walked into his new office at the Treasury building a few hours after his swearing in. These, as others, were received with songs and dance to make the beginning of their time in their dockets. Samira Mohammed, TV47.
Now, let's shift gears to something entirely different, but of a national importance. The World Health Organization has confirmed that Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda are facing a potentially highly transmissible type of the Mpox virus, dubbed Mpox Clade 8E, or 1B, I beg your pardon. Elizabeth Otieno reports on this story, which tells us how the World Health Organization has announced that it will convene an emergency committee meeting to assess whether the increasing spread of Mpox in Africa warrants a global emergency declaration.
Since the beginning of this year, the Democratic Republic of Congo has been experiencing a severe outbreak of Mpox, with more than 14,000 reported cases and 511 deaths. The disease later escalated to other countries in East Africa, including Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda.
About 50 confirmed and more suspected cases have been reported in 4 countries neighboring the DRC that have not reported before: Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, and Uganda.
Mpox outbreaks are caused by different viruses called clades. The World Health Organization says the current Mpox virus in East Africa is from a dangerous type of clade.
The current outbreak in the eastern DRC is caused by a new offshoot of clade 1 called clade 1B, which causes more severe disease than clade 2. We have released $1 million from the WHO Contingency Fund for Emergencies to support scale-up of the response, and we plan to release more in the coming days.
the emergency use listing for 2 Mpox vaccines has been launched. The vaccine manufacturers and applicants are required to submit applications for evaluation. The team will review these applications and assess them within a month. The technical advisory group shall then be convened to make the necessary recommendations.
2 countries in the African region have already approved Mpox vaccines for emergency use. That is, Nigeria has approved the use of one vaccine, MVABN, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo has approved the emergency use of LC16 vaccine and MVABN.
Soon, an emergency committee meeting will be convened by the World Health Organization to assess whether the Mpox outbreak warrants to be declared a public health emergency of international concern.
The committee will meet as soon as possible and will be made up of independent experts from a range of relevant disciplines from around the world.
It is relatively straightforward to stop a disease, even if it is spread internationally, if you know where the disease is, if you're able to detect it, if you're able to find cases, find contacts.
And we know that there are multiple modes of transmission. We see transmission between family members. We do see some zoonotic transmission, but we also see sexual transmission in sexual networks.
Kenya first detected an Mpox case on the 29th of July 2024 from a truck driver at Taita Taveta one-stop border point. On Tuesday this week, the Ministry of Health announced that the patient has since been healed. The World Health Organization has reiterated the need for countries to strengthen surveillance to curb the spread of the virus. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47.
The move by the Central Bank of Kenya, that is CBK, announcing a major overhaul of the country's currency notes aimed at ensuring constitutional compliance comes with concerns from economists about the potential taxpayer burden, inflation risks and increased chances of currency fraud amidst the transition into the newly printed notes. And as Ann Odida reports, economists ask the question, have cases of security issues or breaches been raised with the current servicing notes to warrant a change? Have a look.
Following the cessation of operations by the UK-based company De La Rue, which had been responsible for printing Kenyan currency, the country has now contracted a German firm to undertake the printing of new notes. In the wake of changes anticipated in the currency notes, economists have expressed concern that this decision could place an additional burden on taxpayers.
It has moved from De La Rue, where Kenya government has shares in, moving to a German company that might actually be giving kickbacks to earn that money. So if that is the case, it's very costly because of corruption. But secondly, procurement will cost Kenyan taxpayers money.
CBK Governor Kamau Thuge highlighted that they anticipated a potential shortage of 1,000 Kenyan shillings notes around the months of July and August, which spurred the decision to print new currency. However, pundits have argued that there has never been a shortage of money in the country, suggesting that the move may be unnecessary.
Have a supplier who has a performance contract, and their issue is to ensure there is enough money in circulation. In fact, the very reason for central bank to ensure there's enough money, not enough, just enough, that works in the economy. So that is not a reason, because there's no shortage of Kenya shillings.
The new notes will feature the signature of CBK Governor Kamau Thuge and that of Treasury Principal Secretary Chris Kiptoo. The year of print will be marked as 2024, and the notes will incorporate a new security thread with color variations for each denomination. Despite the updates, questions have been raised regarding the need for such a sudden transition.
Have we had any challenge with the security features in the Kenya shillings note or coins? None that I'm aware of, because there has not been an overwhelming fraud on the use of the Kenya shillings.
Additionally, there are fears that the changes could lead to inflation, a reduction in imports, and a decline in investor confidence, potentially discouraging business activity in the country.
The problem comes is that there will be inflation because there is more money in the economy, yet there is no economic activity to drive the money. So you'll find that, for example, instead of buying a bottle of soda for 50 shillings, it has to become 75 because of supply-demand forces.
The shift comes just 5 years after Kenya last updated its currency in a bid to combat corruption and address a surge of counterfeit 1,000 Kenyan shillings notes. At that time, the change was intended to remove old notes associated with illegal activities and to introduce more secure and modern currency features. Ann Odida, TV47.
And on that note, we wish to take a short break. When we come back, we will have a lot more content for you, including that interview that I spoke to you about. Nane, the day that was. Keep it right here on TV47 News. Send in your questions, your feedback, your views and reviews on the news. Send it and I'll be happy to sample it live and direct on air. We'll be right back.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in? I was number 2. What position were you? Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
You're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m.
Good people, welcome to Insight. And on Insight tonight, we want to, well, have some insights from today's occurrences. What happened on the streets of this country? What happened along the corridors of power and indeed elsewhere, and the significance therein? Tonight, I am joined by two gentlemen here to help us break this down, help us to understand what exactly happened today from the different perspectives that they carry. We have, right on my right is Mr. Sikolia Kisaka. You have other names and you wear many hats, but tonight you come in as a political analyst. Karibu sana.
More like a strategist, but yeah.
Strategist, yeah. Indeed. We'll gain some insight from that. And we also have Mr. Harun Waweru. Karibu sana.
Yeah, thank you.
I believe you had some mishaps,
yeah.
Masaibu today in town.
It was quite tough.
In fact, we'll start with you. But before we do, ladies and gentlemen, you know how we do it. You send in your feedback, you send in your questions, you send in your perspectives through the SMS line, which is on your screen. And I'd like my producers to put up the WhatsApp number. It will come directly here. Please don't call it. Please just send in your message, and I'll be happy to read it and be able to sample it live on air. Questions to our guests, but also points and perspectives from where you come from. Thank you so much. Karibu sana. Harun, talk to us. Where were you today?
Well, I was in town for most part of the day, but, you know, being young in town nowadays is a crime apparently, because you can't sit, stand, or smile from any point.
Is that so?
Yeah, wherever you stand, see any Gen Z. So that was the situation. Even if you're going to work or anything, being young in Kenya has apparently become a crime.
Is that so?
Yeah, from my point of view, that's how I felt.
What were you doing? What were you up to, if I may ask?
At first, I had gone to see someone, but then, because being in town as a young person is a crime, well...
You were caught up in the...
They don't want to know what you're doing there or where you're going. So long as you're young, you're in trouble. So because you're marked as a black sheep, you join the black sheep. So,
right. If the shoe fits.
If the shoe fits, you put it on.
I see. What about you, Mr. Kisaka? Where were you today, and what did you observe?
Thankfully, I was actually working from home. Interestingly enough, as much as I was working from home, I was definitely on air, watching what's happening, getting calls from friends, some of the groups that we are in, and just being able to see what's happening around the country. And it's been quite an interesting day, I'm put it that way.
Talk to me about some of the things that stood out for you and why.
I'll say one of the first things that stood out for me is watching a crippled person, a disabled person who's on crutches, being manhandled and thrown into a vehicle. And I was wondering what kind of threat was he actually to the public or even to the police, because there's quite a number of them. And also just being able to see, the fact that in quite a number of areas, there was places where it almost looked like, these guys, the authorities were kind of provoking, people on the streets, and maybe you run in one direction just to be able to find a group of authorities, police, both uniformed and ununiformed, now arresting people. And I still, was very concerned to be able to see a lot of policemen who are not in uniform, right, in the streets with masks. And for me, the question is, if you are actually doing this and it's legal, why are you hiding your face? Why are you in plain clothes and hiding your faces? And that was quite a bit of a concern to me. But at the same time as well, just being able to see what was happening and realizing that, it's not, the tempo is not the way it was like on the 25th of June. So okay. Definitely we are at that place where something different needs to happen. We need to be able to see those who are looking and agitating for change, look at other ways in which they're going to be able to now push on the agenda forward.
All right. And we'll come back to that in a bit. Harun, I want you to tell me, just on the same line, talk to me about your opinion or your view or your experience of how the police conducted themselves today. Because there's a big difference between the last time and this time. There's a new acting police inspector general. There is also there's been a few announcements by the police coming out to say, this is what we're going to do, coming out to say, we've received intelligence of criminal elements in the protesters, we've seen this and that. What's different? What did you see about the police today?
Well, in terms of force, I think it was much more than, because at some point there was, we were standing, there was somewhere we were standing, and the police told the people, I think from the media, that by 6, don't be around. You should have left town. So that, I didn't know what they insinuated, but drawing back to the time when there was kind of media, they were oppressing the media or, limiting their freedom. I think they're trying to, intimidate people and push people into doing things by force, because of course if you don't agree with them, you have to be either beaten up or abducted or just something funny. They keep telling us that they preserve law and order, but I don't know where this law and order is being preserved, because in town today there was no, the law, who's this law representing? Is it us or is it the government? Because the people who they're supposed to protect are the same people they were beating up and oppressing. So I don't really get it.
So in your opinion, did the police do better this time or worse compared to previous times, previous protests?
In terms of brutality, they were a bit down. That's good. So I think they were quite better than how they used to do previously.
But still a lot to be desired, a lot to improve on.
Yeah, a lot is expected.
Right. What about you? What else would you say? What would be your opinion on exactly how the so-called show of force, or perhaps show of service, what would you, say about that?
It's of concern to me because, and I believe that there are elements of the police, of the authorities that are trying to do it the right way. But then there are a few elements that, are of concern. And my biggest concern is these are supposed to be disciplined forces. So they're supposed to be getting command from one specific place, and they're supposed to be able to operate in a certain specific way. I mean, from my understanding, having engaged the police, having engaged the disciplined forces, I understand chain of command. So being able to see a video of people, a policeman in police gear actually attacking a journalist, right? And just because you're in gear and thinking that you'll not be recognized, and you're attacking a journalist, and I was asking, is that person, is the person in charge of, or rather, is the superior there, is the supervisor there? And why are they allowing this? Because that was an unprovoked attack as far as I was concerned. Looking at some of the things that were happening, seeing some of the guys who had to run into Nation Center, and some of the people on the streets, as my colleague here said, that just being a young person in the streets has become an extreme sport. Because the moment they think that you're Gen Z, they're going to attack you. They're not going to ask any questions. So that's a bit of concern to me, because my question is, are we having a rogue police force? I saw a video today. I still don't know whether it's authenticated, but I saw a video today of someone in an army uniform stating that, why have you arrested my uncle? And he specifically mentioned, I think, a policeman in some police station, and they're saying, I'm going to come out. If you have a problem with me, you come, because I'm from the disciplined forces, you're from the disciplined forces. Let us deal with one another, but then you cannot go and keep on harassing people who are unarmed. And specifically, he was talking about a family member. So you see, now that brings concern to me, because if it's someone in the military, in the army, who is unhappy with what's happening with the police, what is this going to lead into? What's going to come next? Right? Because that video, I saw it this evening, just actually on my way here, and it was of concern, and that's why I'm mentioning it, because slowly by slowly, much as we're seeing, okay, fine, maybe the government is gotten us to a place where the demos are not as intense. Okay, fine, it's not as hectic as it's been in the past, but what is happening? We've got Gen Zs talking about, all right, maybe start a political party, let's see what other avenues we've got. But then at the same time, even these small skirmishes that we're having, if they're going to bring disunity within our disciplined forces, we're in big trouble.
Right, right. Haron, why do you think the protests were not as well attended today, of all days, considering how the others have been, and considering just how much hype there had been around Nane? In fact, to coin a phrase, Nane kabla ya sanane. But by sanane, it was quite sleepy. It was looking quite sleepy in many towns across the country. The turnout was not as big. Why do you think this is so?
When it comes to people actually being on the streets, I think it draws to the question of their security. As said, the police are supposed to protect them, but instead of protecting the protesters, they're busy killing them. So if you're killing them, there's no way these people will, they don't feel safe in their own country to begin with. And then equally, they had blocked several of the roads. Actually, I think all roads leading to town. So if people were to come from outside town, they'd meet this police, you're young, go back. So there's, instead of actually handling an issue, the government decides to counter by trying to show the nation that nothing is going on. Let's be calm, nothing is going on. But they're not actually handling the problem that they have at hand. They're busy, creating, distractions and whatnot. So in terms of people being present, it's all about, okay, other than people being afraid to move out, if you're confident enough to go, you meet these people, the barricades and everything, and you have to go back.
So there are actually physical difficulties, physical danger was a bit of a deterrent.
Yeah, because, being shot is one thing.
Right. But here's another question, though. From any angle you look at it, it looks like the push, the momentum of the protests is slowing down. There are many that say that the moment of the efficacy, the effectiveness of that protest, the moment is lost. Would you agree?
In terms of, not really. Because you don't have to be on the streets to show that you are against something at some angle. It's part of the job, but there comes a time when you have to re-strategize and think of a better way, because we were on the streets for, say, 2 weeks, and we didn't get anything as Gen Z. All we got is Raila getting a position in government, which does not help me in any way whatsoever. It doesn't help any of my friends, doesn't help any of us. It doesn't better the nation in any way from how I see it. So instead of focusing on streets and demonstrations, you come up with a new strategy that is going to at least level the game for all of us.
Right. Mr. Kisaka, where do you stand on this? Why do you think there isn't as big of a turnout this time? And would you agree, or where do you stand on the question of whether the moment is lost?
I wouldn't say that the moment is lost. It's just that it's morphing into something else. Because, you cannot be able to go and do the same thing over and over and over and expect different results. If you look back at what happened on the 25th of June, was it 25th or 26th of June? The first day, and the intensity of it, and at that particular point, because people did not expect it to be at that level. And unfortunately, where it's gotten to where we're having even goons in the streets, you cannot expect to, you've seen that there are goons in the streets. People are being paid to go to the streets to be able to counter this. This is not even about the government anymore. This is, you have no idea. People have got different ideas as to why they're going to the streets. People have been paid. People have got different agendas, right? So you've got to be able to look at what's happening and change tact, okay? So today we're coming and saying, okay, Nane, we didn't see maybe as many people, and that's because as well, you had the police saying that they were ready, they had prepared. But at the same time, how many groups do we know that are talking about political parties? Being able to formulate political parties. I even saw some of the Gen Zs who are already aligning with some political parties that already exist. I know of some who are thinking, can we start a political party? Can we buy a political party? What do we need to be able to do to be able to ensure that our voice is heard? And that is now actually where now, we are ensuring, or rather they're ensuring that they are following the Constitution, because that's what's put in the Constitution for us. And in line with that, we have already come and we've made sure that they know we exist. And we are not going to take things the way we were taking before, where you do whatever you want and there's nothing we're saying about it. We will make noise. But at the same time, much as we say, or much as Gen Z are saying that, they're leaderless, they're partyless, they're beginning to understand that to be able to bring the change that is required, we need to now start being strategic as well. We need to be able to start asking ourselves, who do we think amongst the people that we know are able to take up positions? Looking at, like now, for instance, the cabinet, okay? I would say that I've seen in a number of areas where people are discussing and saying, in this area we should have gotten so and so. In this area we should have thought about so and so. And they're looking amongst their peers as well to see who will have been able to take up a certain cabinet position and maybe have done well. I'm actually disappointed that quite a number of those guys who are put there, who are put into the cabinet right now, are really recycled. There's nothing much that they're going to bring. And so we will be looking for them to be able to depend on the technocrats, which is the PSs and the rest. Unfortunately, again, because being the CS, even if you have technocrats who know what they need to do, if you do not empower them, then we're still going to have a problem.
Right. And actually, this is a point where we segue into looking at the other thing that happened today, which is the swearing in of cabinet secretaries. You've touched on that. I want Harun to jump in on this. From where you sit, what did you make of the event at State House? 19, first of all, yesterday, 19 approved, 1 found lacking in some regard, and then 19 of them being sworn in and showing up to begin, their shift. What do you make of that?
Okay, in as much as we need a system to run the nation, I think, as my colleague has said, we need people who actually know what is happening in that field. If it's in the field of transport, I think we do need someone who has even a bit of knowledge on how maybe construction works, how maybe roads are designed, or basics in the field in which this person is handling. Because you cannot be put in charge of, you can't be in charge of something you don't really know anything about. It doesn't make sense. Because, okay, I have a colleague who has done, something to do with wildlife management, and in terms of whoever was put in charge by, I think formally, whoever was put in charge of wildlife and tourism didn't really understand what I think it was a she, was doing in that bracket. We need people who do understand what they're doing there so that they can push the country forward based on what they know.
So what's your opinion on the cabinet as it's constituted right now?
I don't really think that will solve any of our problems, because I believe in one theory personally. Before you tell me of something, say maybe you're a successful person, before I come to you for consultation, I need to see what you have done or what you have achieved. So these people, based on their former positions, those who were in government, for example, what have they done for their people in their constituents that shows they're capable of handling a bigger task in Kenya? If they cannot show if they cannot have anything to show for what they were doing at a small scale level, then how do you expect them to handle at a large scale level? It's quite impossible, I think. So if most of these people, I believe, are incompetent, they are not fit to hold these positions, because I've not seen anything they've done to change this country. I've not.
All right. You've got one of the youngest ministers sworn in, a single young man. He said he has no car. He is fairly, compared to the others at least, fairly wananchi net worth. What's your opinion on that?
At the end of the day, they all end up being the same. I don't think they put people, I used to ask this story, if you found a snake in your house, would you assume that it will become a lizard later on and leave it to stay there for a while? I don't think so. So if you found a snake in your house, it means that the snake hangs out with fellow snakes, not other lizards.
All right. Mr. Kisaka, what's your opinion on matters reptilian here as it regards to cabinet?
Oh, well, unfortunately, this is, for me, looking at it and thinking, it's not about cabinet to be able to ensure that the country runs. It's all politics. And that's the unfortunate aspect of it. Because I anticipated and expected that, at this particular point, we will look at it, ensuring that we are bringing cabinet as maybe, professionals coming together to figure out how to be able to get the country from where it is. But then now, when you look at most of the people who are there, and these are people who, a few weeks ago were singing a very different tune, right? And now they're here and coming and saying, no, we will change this. I was wrong then. Were you wrong then and right, and now changing changing what you believe because now you're in power? Or is it a genuine, a genuine change of heart? So we've got to be able to ask ourselves, and if I was asked, if there's even one single person in cabinet right now who was in the previous cabinet, then, as they always say, one spoiled apple will spoil the rest.
The snake is not going to turn into a lizard.
Exactly.
But here they are. The cabinet has been sworn in, and fortunately for some and unfortunately for others, they are sworn in. They've gone through Parliament for one reason or another. They've won the vetting process. They've been sworn in. They've got flags on their vehicles now. They're being called sir and madam. They're in office. From tomorrow or Monday, we should expect to see a lot of them commenting and handling national affairs. What do you think the next 2.5 years portends for the country, for them in particular that have been put in office, for the man at the house on the hill, and for Kenya?
Many of those who are in cabinet are actually politicians as well. So, looking at it, because, you've got to be able to change based on what's happening, right? So, yes, we might have wanted different people there, but then now these are the people that we've been given. So now it's to hold them responsible. If I was any of those people, even right now, I'll not be celebrating that position. I'll be trying to figure out what were the problems that were there, what are the issues, and I will now try to repair my image and reputation to the people of Kenya. The only way you can do that is by performing. Not by word of mouth, but by actually delivering and showing that, look, I've done this, and I've done this, right? Because if we don't go about it in that particular way, we're going to get to the time of elections and it's going to go back to the same thing. If you support me in this, I'm going to give you a position. If you support me in this, I'm going to give you a position. Right now, when you look at cabinet, all that's happened is that it's a political tool where now we've seen the politicians coming together to protect themselves. Not to serve the Kenyan people, but to protect themselves. And that is okay in a way, if you really look at it, if you get there and you now serve the Kenyans. I was talking to a couple of people today and said, it's interesting that, you actually have some dictatorships where the people, the leaders are known to be dictators, the government is known to be, oppressive, but they still deliver for their people. So you see, that's a catch-22, because even if the people were thinking of, okay, we're not happy with the way we're treated, but I'm able to go to hospital, I'm able to, earn my daily bread. I'm actually able to function. But we are right now in a country where we're not able to function, and the people who are being put there are just, are rubbing it into our faces. Okay? When you come and see, like the other day in Parliament, when an MP was saying, I'm not happy with what the judiciary had said, and we need to curtail and give them less budget. Forgetting that the judiciary was doing that because it was unconstitutional. They were talking about something that was unconstitutional, and they're saying this cannot happen. And an MP says, cut their budget. I'm surprised that the people that particular legislator represents have not found a way to already just recall them and put someone else there. So much as we are complaining about who's in government, we need to look at ourselves as people as well, because who vetted the CSs?
Right.
It's the parliamentarians. Who put them there? We put them there.
Right.
So it comes back to us, and it's not about going to the streets, but it's sitting down and saying, what does the Constitution allow us to do if we want to change these people? And let's change them and move on.
All right. Harun, you've got new CSs, like it or not, here they are. What do you think is the strategy going to be to do what Mr. Kisaka is saying, keep them accountable between now and then? What are your views on that? Real quick.
I think we should have a system or something to do with, I was thinking, for example, we have regional development in each of the regions. We have an effect that each of the cabinet positions plays on each of the regions of Kenya. So if we can have the people say the government is to talk to its people because they're serving us, not them. So they should talk to us. If, for example, it's roads, we can have maybe once in a while, once a month, we can have a meeting with the head of the region, maybe the MP or the governor, who can take our issues further to the national level. So we can have a debate with them, not a debate per se, but a talk, which we can address our current issues, and we cannot. It's like we'll be having a list, so we'll cancel out each of the expectations. If we expect this and they do it, we have that, cancelled out, and we keep moving forward. So if they can be accountable and we can, find a system, maybe that one that I'm proposing, to keep them accountable, maybe we can move forward.
All right. Gentlemen, I like to say this. Sometimes the subject is bigger than the time that we have. I'd like to give both of you an opportunity to talk to Kenyans. Thoughts, Mr. Kisaka, this is your camera, or perhaps that one. Talk to us from where you sit. Which way forward? Which way for the next 2.5 years? What message do you have for Kenyans? Brief as you can. Thank you.
For me, I would say, number one, where we are right now, read the Constitution. Start from there. Understand what it expects of us, understand what it allows us to do, and then look at the leadership that we've got and use the Constitution to be able to now hold them accountable. If it states that, the way it states that, we can be able to replace these leaders, find it in yourself to find people who are of like minds and say, okay, yes, we want to replace 1, 2, 3. But as you're doing that, do not say we're replacing and remove the people who are there before you know who you're going to put in. Because you do not want to remove someone and maybe put in someone who's worse, or create a vacuum, because vacuums will always be filled and you do not know who's going to fill them. So we need to take a step back and look and say, we've come this far. What next? By the time we come to the elections in 2027, do we have the right people who are going to be able to take up the positions that we are agitating about and bring the change that we are expecting for this country? Thank you.
All right. Harun, your comment to Kenya, please.
I'd like to say that, to begin with, charity begins at home. So for us to have a national change, for us to have a better Kenya, we need to start by bettering ourselves first, learn what we are supposed to learn what is going to keep us moving forward, learn what will make a better Kenya for me and for the rest of us, so that tomorrow our children can be proud that at least we did something that is different from what we found. I think that's mostly it.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you for joining us this evening and for talking to us. We had Mr. Harun Waweru. Thank you so much for coming. And we had Mr. Sikolia Kisaka as well. Thank you, gentlemen. Good people at home, thank you for watching. If I may sample some of your feedback, Evans Avire from Nairobi says, Gen Zs are right, but give the government time to implement their demands. Somebody else called Kundu from Bungoma, you say, unafurahi hakuna maandamano. That's Kundu. Elias from Juja, you say, the day was calm, no demos experienced from this side. And somebody else here, you haven't left your name, you say, you're happy that we're talking about this. The cost of living is high and we are low people. We have put money in front of every other virtue. Yes, thank you so much. A lot of people are sending in their feedback, but I just want to say thank you for choosing us to inform you tonight. It's been my absolute pleasure and my humble responsibility to bring you the news and the discussion tonight. My name is Victor Muyakane. Do have a good night full of God's blessings.